The US isn't heading towards a civil war. We're nowhere near close to it. Get that out of your head. I know social media and a whole bunch of rotten pundits are telling us that we're getting so much closer and the country has never been this divided. These people either don't know history or they're trying to hide it from you because there have been at least two other major instances after the Civil War where the United States was much more divided than we are today. For one, the civil rights movement, which ran at its hottest during the 1950s, 60s, and the early 1970s, blows whatever we are facing today far out of the water. The civil rights movement turned the entire cultural identity of the United States on its head as Jim Crow fought bitterly to stay in power as it had been for about 100 years. It was baked into almost several federal institutions in this country, so it wasn't just a local thing. There were massive protests across the country's major cities at a scale much larger than anything we're really putting for today, and they were much more violent, and the legal consequences were much harsher. And this division during the civil rights era was exponentiated by the explosion of the Vietnam War, which further divided everybody and was also harming the American economy and destroying our image across the world. And keep in mind this tragic detail about how divided this country was during the civil rights era. Whenever there were great speakers who realized we shouldn't be divided, we should start uniting, like Malcolm X when he came back from Mecca, Martin Luther King in the mid 1960s, and Robert Kennedy, when they realized, no, we can't be divided because there is a much greater enemy, and it really is the enemy that wants to keep creating the divide between the rich and the poor. And when they started spreading that message, that is when they were. Now, while the civil rights era was a much more tense and divided time than today, it doesn't compare anything to the Great Depression. That was the closest we came towards having some kind of civil war or revolution. During the Great Depression, by 1933, unemployment skyrocketed to 25%, and wages dropped by over 40%. So, what are we facing? 4.4% unemployment today, and we actually have wages that are slightly growing faster than inflation. I mean, not by much, but it's at least starting to finally beat inflation. America was the breadbasket of the world, and people were starving here. There were parents who had to tell their children that they couldn't eat for that day. In 1932, a group of brave World War I veterans, about 20,000 strong, called the Bonus Army, marched on Washington unarmed. They were merely protesting the economic conditions. They wanted to get their benefits, and they also, of course, wanted to show Washington that, look, you really need to do something because things are getting terrible. And what did Washington do? Led by Douglas MacArthur, the general of World War II. He actually fired tear gas and attacked these brave heroes. That was one of the lowest points in American history after the Civil War. And nobody talks about it, but we should. Now let's talk about why states won't secede from the Union and we're not going to have a civil war. For one, the vast majority of U.S. soldiers, and I mean overwhelming majority of U.S. soldiers, have a greater loyalty to the Constitution and America than their home state. And two, the United States military is so incredibly integrated. So you have people from New York who serve with people from Louisiana or Alaska. It's all a mixed bag, and that's an incredible thing. It also means that there is a great deal of cohesion. And the second reason I'm going to give you is something I have not heard anybody talk about, but it's money. You see, back in 1861, when the states had the cojones to secede from the Union, they received zero federal aid. So each of these states were almost their own independent economies. And of course, they resented the taxes and tariffs that they had to pay to Washington, D.C., which they viewed were much more disproportionate compared to other northern states. And just remember, for you states' rights people, that the South was only able to profit this way because of the abomination that they were guilty of committing for over 100 years, and I'm talking about slavery. But today, All the states that seceded from the Union, and of course, quite a few more red states, are heavily dependent on federal aids and grants just to stay economically afloat. Even Texas. Texas, which is one of the largest economies in the Union, received $61 billion in federal aid in 2024. That's 2.3% of their GDP. And look at all the other states that seceded from the Union and how much of a percentage of their state's GDP came through federal aid. None of these states are going to secede from the Union because they will go broke in less than a year. Yeah, even Texas. And how would these states manage trade in a globalized world? How would they be able to use federal roads to get to other states, to go to port, to actually transport the goods that they want to sell to the rest of the world? So guys, there is zero survivability for any state that wants to secede from the Union. Yes, even Texas. So guys, anyone who's been talking about a civil war brewing knows nothing about American history or economics. I am the Geo Husar, and you should be choosing facts, not fear. Thanks for watching.